Hello and welcome to the All Are Welcome podcast, Sleighingit.Online's first podcast. This is episode 1. This is the first one we're ever doing. So if it doesn't go fantastic, then blame Victoria. This is her baby.
Right.
I thought it'd be fun to start off with introductions so people have a generic idea of who we are. Any first-time listeners or any community members that want to be able to follow along can put a name to a voice. So I'll start. I'm Red. My channel is Red the Deer. I am the owner and a content creator for Sleighingit.Online.
Hey, and I'm Coughlin. My channel is Panda Coughlin, and I am just a content creator.
And my name is Vicky, and my channel is Victoria Aurora.
I'm the community manager and content creator for Sleighingit.Online, and I'm going to be handling the podcast, I guess. We'll see.
We are filming this on a weekend, so we have a whole week's worth of information to be able to kind of like catch up on. How are you guys? How are you, Coughlin?
Oh, I just got done, doing my IRL job. So I'm not exactly exhausted, but I'm very. What would be the appropriate word here? Whenever you get up in the morning, you're groggy, but after doing some work, you're like alert. That's where I'm at right now. I've done enough to get me very alert to the world around. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I was actually not expecting either of you to ask me how I'm doing. I was totally just.
Oh no!
I was gonna ask you guys,
That's not how podcasts work.
Just totally caught me off guard.
We're all included in the conversation.
Oh my god!
So.
Regular conversation.
Oh god!
What do I do?
No, I appreciate you asking. I'm great. I've been playing Assassin's Creed all week. Valhalla.
No way, really?
Yeah, I bought it back when it came out, and it was just such a long campaign that I think I got 20 minutes into it. I got past the original Norway stuff when the game first was released, and I never played it after that. We actually filmed it and put that on the YouTube. Didn't get any traction, so I wasn't motivated to do it from like a business standpoint. But I also didn't really care enough about the game itself. I've gone back to it because the Ragnarok DLC looked super interesting, and I can't put it down. I play it at least 12 hours a day at this point. The only time I'm not playing it is when I'm sleeping or doing stuff for the stream. So I'm obsessed with it. It's a great game. Fantastic.
All right, Red, whenever you said Assassin's Creed, I was not thinking Valhalla or whatever it is. I was thinking the original Assassin's Creed. It's like, oh, you were playing the original Assassin's Creed? That's cool. And you said, I've had it since it first came out. I'm like, wait, what? So you've had it since like the back of the Xbox 360 days and you just still never played it?
Oh, yeah, back on the Altair days?
Well, you got to Black Flag or whatever.
Yeah, with the original story, I played all of them up to Black Flag. I still say Assassin's Creed 3 is the best, but that's from the opinion of someone who hasn't played all of the ones that kind of fell through afterwards.
Well, that's Dimitri's
storyline. The main dude who like
storyline,
goes through the Animus. You watched me play through all those games, and we stopped after Black Flag. I couldn't get into it. It was way too open world for me, and I loved the idea and the theme. I just was doing other stuff. World of Warcraft must have taken my time from there, but It was so interesting how they decided to do the IRL stuff, the Dimitri thing, like the change from Dimitri to, I forgot, or his son. It went to Elijah, and then it did some other stuff. That was all not fun. I liked the Dimitri storyline, how he sacrificed himself to save the world, and they tried to like, oh, we still have to make games. We didn't want to stop making games. Now we have to continue the story.
Right, but they shifted to now this more past origins vibe where it's like you go to your ancestors even further than Dimitri.
It's not even ancestors. They've now updated the technology enough to not be an animus. It's called the Helix.
Right.
And now anybody can go to anybody's past as long as they have the DNA. So we're like over Ivor's bones, harvesting her DNA so that the researcher can go into the Animus and do stuff. I don't even care about that stuff anymore. Like the IRL,
the game alone is just good because it's kind of like an RPG, but you're just playing through someone's storyline. There just happens to be a canon version of it as like a research, like that whole backstory is like almost unnecessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a fun game without the IRL stuff anymore, and I appreciate the RPG elements that they've tied into the game. It definitely makes it more intriguing to continue to play.
Right. Coughlin, did you play any of the original games when they were coming out?
I'm going to be completely honest. The only Assassin's Creed game that I played was Assassin's Creed 2, and that was because it was with Games for Gold on
Nice.
So
That makes sense, though.
and I played half of it, and it was it was fun, but I don't know because I was really wanting to try the Valhalla or the Greek one that happened a little bit before that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't know. I did feel like that was actually kind of a bit of a barrier to entry for me was that backstory because I knew that there was a lot there. I was like, I don't want to have to like go into this not knowing anything. But you know what? You're absolutely right. I bet you if they just did a spin-off series of just like historical fiction and then going from there and just making that kind of game, I bet you a lot of people would just still like it for what it was, from what it sounds like.
They could probably just make a game that is just an assassin and killing Templars and no IRL stuff left anymore.
And there didn't need to be any storyline. Honestly, I feel like this new series of games that they just, since the Greek
Odyssey,
the Odyssey version, we played through most of that one.
Yeah, I got like, again, that was another one of those that I started, played for like 30, 45 minutes. I think I actually got further. I think I got 5 hours or 6 hours into that one.
But to me, like, you don't need to know anything about Dimitri to like the game.
No, not at all. And Dimitri's not
so
in
I
it.
would almost start there and move forward with the game series if you're not invested in going backwards. You might be invested in going backwards once you get like kind of established into the now world, but it is one of those games. But that's a cross-platform game, yeah.
It's single player, so it's cross-platform's like irrelevant. There was a multiplayer version in one of the games prior, but I don't know what you mean by cross-platform.
I was just asking.
She means
like,
multi-platform. That's all she's asking.
Like you can play on PC and Xbox.
You can play on PC and you can play on
Yeah, you can
Xbox
definitely play it on on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation.
Yeah, I think it saves to Ubisoft's
even
cloud,
GameCube.
so it has the cross
like,
save.
You could cross save, but you're not. Okay, that makes sense because it's actually going to transition us into our topic for today's podcast, which is did you just see what Sony just bought?
Yeah, I saw that in the news.
Yeah.
It might have popped up in my Twitter feed.
Right. Do you know how much money they spent on
Like 3.6 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
on Bungie?
Yeah. So what she's talking about, for those that are unaware, is Sony purchased Bungie this week. That is going to time this podcast for if we want to go back and listen to it. It's great because Sony bought Bungie this week for $3.6 billion. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but if you do that into stark contrast to what Microsoft did the previous week, which was they purchased Activision Blizzard King for $70 billion.
It's a big difference.
That's a fractional difference for those two companies.
Huge difference.
Well, but let's be completely honest here, okay? They're not buying companies. They're buying IPs.
That's
So
interesting.
Say it louder, Coffin.
So what they're buying, what Sony bought for 3.6 or however billion dollars, was they bought Destiny.
Right.
Or whatever side projects they have.
Did they have side projects?
That was when I was like, Bungie.
Yeah.
They bought, quote unquote, Bungie.
I loved reading, hated. I loved reading and following the Twitter feed that was popping up all over the place that broke the internet. And so many, like, I don't want to call them non-intellectuals because that's littered on Twitter. But it's people who are misunderstanding the IP transfer because they thought Bungie, that made the original Halo games, Halo 1 through 3.
That's not how that works.
And people are like, oh, PlayStation now owns Halo.
And we're like, whoa.
Like, they're so stupid.
Yeah, I was like,
it's like that's why I'm saying they bought Destiny.
Yeah, they definitely bought Destiny.
Xbox kept the Halo intellectual property. So I understand that Bungie made Halo, but let's face it, Halo's not going anywhere. And
they sold out.
I know that Bungie's a great company, or at least used to be. It sounds like Marty O'Donnell isn't like on board with how Bungie is right now. That's another topic. But what I am referring to is that the $70 billion bought all these IPs that are all $100 million franchises, right?
The best games of the best games. I think
what
anyone
falls
who plays
into that category, because we got some big names. I mean, we have some few games. I just have a few listed here of Xbox exclusive games versus PlayStation exclusive games, and what this is going to do to the quote unquote console wars. You know,
It's over.
Is it over though?
The
No,
nail
I
is in
have-
the coffin. It is over.
It is-
Xbox wins.
I actually have a little bit of a disagreement there, okay? So, believe it or not, Microsoft buying all these intellectual properties, from my perspective, was not a good business move, just a good business move, because you want all these exclusives
Right. They do.
without them being first party. Does that make sense? There
I mean,
are
yeah.
so many Japanese and Korean game developers out there who make games only for PlayStation.
It's true. That is true. There are some big names too, not even just smaller names. I mean, we have some big. I mean, God of War, Last of Us, Uncharted, Infamous. I mean, those are all Spider-Man. Those are just PlayStation exclusive games.
Spider-Man being probably the biggest on that list next to God of War. If there was ever going to be like I wish those were on Xbox games, both of those would be pretty dope. However, you can't not look at the fact that Xbox games now win, right?
Well, that brings up a different topic.
From our audience, right?
Right,
Because
from
that's
our
one of the things
perspective,
that
yeah.
Xbox and overseas in Japan, it's like not existent at all.
Right.
You don't buy an Xbox in Japan because none of the games you want to play are on Xbox because they're only exclusively making them for PlayStation. So but you're absolutely right why this was such a great business move, because everybody in Japan does know about Skyrim. I know we're going to Bethesda here a little bit, but this is just a sequence of IP purchases that they've made over the past couple of years. So they are buying these big games that are known overseas. Like Blizzard just happens to be one of those companies that has an impact in Korea, especially.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is
I
one of
would
the places that they're trying to break into.
I would definitely categorize the entire East rather than try to get specifics, just in case, because I've never been to those countries, so I don't know.
But let me ask you this. Do you
What they
think these
purchase.
companies? I would say that there was going to be this moment when Stadia dropped saying we're going to do online games.
Yeah.
We're going to be the new quote-unquote console, right?
And then 3 months prior to Stadia being released, Microsoft did the Game Pass.
Right. So do you think this is not only Microsoft but Sony's way of owning the market while also controlling the market?
Well, let's first start off and look at it from a different perspective. Like, you own your own business.
Right.
I'm starting my own business.
Right.
These contracts deals are so long into the works, months and months worth of work. Like, even though it was only $4 billion on a scale of current IP purchases, that is really, really small with what we've got to compare it to.
Right.
But they weren't doing that in a retaliation to what Microsoft purchased.
I mean,
There's no way that Microsoft
think they
purchased
panicked?
Activision and then Sony goes, what spare change do we have under the couch that we could buy the cheapest, coolest IP right now? And they retaliate, like they answered
Okay.
with Destiny. That's
yes,
not realistic.
I do see your point on that, but I'm saying that when they first probably got news, like, because that's how it works in the real world, like in the stocks and in when it comes to buying stocks and buying stakes in companies, you put your ear to the ground and you know who's buying what contracts have been purchased, what IPs have been purchased.
Correct. These contracts have been under negotiations for a long time, probably longer than the public has an eye to it.
Maybe.
I mean, sure, there's a possibility that is the case. I would lean towards this being in the works for a really long time, and maybe them going public with it was in retaliation to the purchase.
They
Not
might
necessarily that.
I
like,
could see that.
That could have been something that they were planning on announcing later, but then whenever they had heard about it, then maybe they announced in retaliation.
I agree.
Not that it was in retaliation.
That's a good point. They definitely probably rushed the process, which is a good point. However, if let's compare these two deals for a second, right? And let's talk about why Microsoft has the better planning to make the negotiation. Now we could bring up the entire mathematics of like how much money are they going to make off of Destiny? How much money is Microsoft going to make off of Activision? Like, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about just the baseline format and Microsoft's idea of purchasing IPs versus Sony's, right? So if we look at Microsoft's foresight to plan to purchase IPs, they bought Bethesda not because of ESO, not because of Skyrim, but because of the 3 games that are still unreleased that Bethesda has been working on. And I will die on that hill. They did not buy those games for the game. They did not buy it for the games they were making. They bought it, or for the games they have made, they bought it for the games they are making. That is the same with Microsoft.
What about also the game copyrights that they have as well?
What does that mean?
Like the type of game you can create don't they own like a specific type of game development too?
No,
you're
because
also
that would
buying
That can't.
yeah, that would assume that they own an RPG, because Bethesda's primarily made either third-person or first-person RPGs, and they don't own that element.
Okay, but they don't own any specific copyrights that they couldn't.
There was a case, I think it was in the late 80s or early 90s, where somebody actually made a fighting game that was extremely similar to that of Street Fighter, and Street Fighter took them. And,
court?
well, I think it reached the Supreme Court, and they said, you don't own a fighting game. You can't.
Right.
It's just another fighting game. You can't.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened with Fortnite. When Fortnite tried to copy PUBG and PUBG tried to sue, and then they're like, you can't sue. And that gave the green light to the 80 other billion companies to make the Warzone type game.
What's the thing? This might derail us a little bit, but
I want to go back to what I was finishing, because I didn't get it finished.
Oh,
I only was able to talk about the foresight for Bethesda, and then I was going to talk about Microsoft. So Microsoft purchased Activision, right? Not for the games they own, but for the games they are making. Microsoft knows that Activision and Blizzard are making the next Call of Duty game. They know that they're making Overwatch 2. They know that they're making Diablo 4. They know that there's a Warcraft mobile game coming out. They know that there's definitely an expansion to World of Warcraft on the horizon. Those are all things that Microsoft goes, oh yeah, fantastic. We'll make money on those. Who cares what games they currently own? Sony bought Destiny with the feeling that they're going to make a new Destiny game. Like, they've got an expansion on the rise, but it does seem like to be getting a lot of hype. I even downloaded Destiny and played it again recently. However, we can't assume Destiny's going to even be making another Destiny game. Like, Bungie doesn't, I don't think that would have been a part of the conversation. Otherwise, Microsoft would have bought them, right? It was only $4 billion.
Maybe they're trying to think of, we want to have another game that's console specific. Like, do they want Destiny to be Destiny's only PlayStation now? If
they made Destiny PlayStation only, I would imagine that would hurt their sales more than it would help them.
Because what happened to Activision owning?
Activision did have stakes in Destiny, and Destiny was on the Battle.net B-Pass, but I think that was more of a contractual deal. That wasn't an ownership.
It was. Well, and that leads me to more of a... Because that's, you're right. I don't know what their incentive is, but what do you think this is going to do to the gaming community? What do you think this is going to do to smaller businesses wanting to have any stake in the game now to make a good game compared to these big,
We talked a lot about that the other day. You don't think it's going to do anything? That's interesting.
No, because Undertale exists. People...
Okay,
when
that's
things
true.
become a monopoly...
Well... It's a duopoly.
One of the things that they control in a monopoly is distribution.
Yeah.
Steam always exists and will always be. Now, if Microsoft buys Steam, then we have a conversation on our hands.
Right.
But Steam is just a distributor. They're not really a game producer.
You can make a game by yourself and it still get big. Like, they don't control all development. And in fact, Xbox still encourages indie developments, because even your crappy game that gets on the Xbox store, that's another crappy game in their catalog.
Yeah.
So they're not going to really kill the small business. In fact, they're probably going to encourage it. That's
not this. Okay, so absorbing small businesses' IPs is definitely not the same as supporting small businesses. I would go as far as Google does a better job of supporting small businesses than Microsoft.
Microsoft is just IPs existed without the purchase.
Sure, maybe for 2 weeks.
Just because it transfers hands, just because the IPs transfer hands, doesn't remove their presence.
Sure.
Right.
I believe it'll be the opposite. I believe this is going to turn into an absolute final destination, man versus man, buying every single type of IP possible until there's no IPs left on the market, and we're going to have McDonald's, Microsoft, Google, Disney versus Sony, Wendy's, whatever else is available left to
Universal,
purchase. Like, it's
yeah.
just going to be two companies fighting in the American market, Western style democracy type shit until there's literally just those teams.
Unfortunately, we live in a country. Well, fortunately, I'll say fortunately, not unfortunately. Fortunately, we live in a country that has quote unquote free market. And something that has been developing in our country for a while now is this idea of not a monopoly, because monopolies are actually not allowed in our country, but duopolies are, where two major companies own the market and they don't stop other people from joining that market, but it's really, really, really hard to compete with them. You will never make as much money. Your small, pop shop soda creating company can create a company and sell soda at your local grocery store. But you're not going to be Coca-Cola.
You're going to have to use the trucks that Microsoft supplies. You're going to have to use the factories that Sony currently owns.
If you want to get big enough. And I do think...
All right, well, let's try looking at this like paintings for a second here. Okay? Let's say that each of these intellectual properties were just paintings.
Oh, hold on, real quick, Coughlin.
What's up?
I just wanted to clarify to the younger market, a painting is a physical NFT. No, hold on. It's a physical NFT. It is a tangible, you can touch, you shouldn't touch them. Don't go to a museum and touch them to see if they're real. They're real, but it is a physical NFT. Okay, you can continue.
Oh my god.
And taking pictures of both lower their value.
Yes.
So, if we look at these IPs as paintings, we're gonna look at Microsoft trying to buy up all the paintings of the world, and Sony trying to buy up all the paintings of the world. That doesn't stop people from being able to make new portraits.
It's true.
And it doesn't stop people. Now, if you're in the business of, let's say, an art museum, and you're trying to figure out, which art museum is better, then then that's where the competition will come in. But that doesn't mean that a small person can't make a new painting.
No, but what do you think that's going to do to that quality of that painting?
I don't think the quality of the games will ever change.
I mean, Jesus, half the games that we saw
I know.
On E3 last year, half the stuff looked like really bad, like 90s games.
That's true.
It was pretty interesting how they were going back to how the bad look seems to be like what's in style right now. So I think that but I guess that's where Undertale does come in. Look at Minecraft.
Right.
Minecraft is not a very
doesn't have to be
textured game.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be the newest and greatest.
It's less about that. It's more about companies now realize they don't need to spend the resources on those small, very like facial things like Minecraft, for example. Animation wise is a very minimalistic effort that the company has to do.
Stuff,
However, the math and the genius behind the coding and then the way the AI works in Minecraft is why it's such an enjoyable experience, because they've spent all of their resources on other things. I think the consumer is just getting out of the, oh my god, this game looks so real, and going to, holy crap, look what I can do in this game. That's why Spider-Man is so good. Spider-Man is so good on PlayStation because of how fun it feels to free fall in web and be Spider-Man, where if you look at the other games, like Spider-Man back in the day was so cool because of how good it looked to be Spider-Man. The original Spider-Man games didn't have the best mechanics. They still had some really good ones, but it was like, oh my god, I'm fighting Dr. Octavian. He looks like a badass. Like, it was about the looks with the original Xbox and PlayStation.
Yeah, but
and we're getting more into the technical difficulty.
Yeah, Borderlands is a total opposite of that, where it looks cartoony for a reason.
That's why I stand where I stand, because it doesn't stop people from painting new portraits and still make it big. Now, I understand that you can correlate this to, it doesn't stop you from making a small business and then going out from there. But I think whenever you look at it from an intellectual property, like as a painting standpoint, I think you still, no matter how big the art museum gets, you can still end up making the best painting out there.
I don't think that's the worry. I think a lot of people are scared of the duopoly. I think a lot of people are scared of what does that mean for the consumer. Well, for one, it doesn't mean anything. As long as there's still competition, that means the consumer wins.
PlayStation Live.
If there's still competition, the consumer wins because they're still going to be fighting for our purchase. Now, it's only going to be you're either this or you're that. And if one of them starts to gain the race, for example, we can all basically agree Microsoft is currently the lead horse in this race. It's nowhere close to being done. The race has a long time to complete, couple more laps.
Their objectives could be different too.
Sony's gonna pump the NOS in the next couple years. That's the beauty of the duopoly.
Vic just said right there.
Well, I mean, it's true.
Where she was talking about how if it's not their main objective. My thought from the very beginning, whenever they were shooting for cross-platform, and then this Game Pass came out, my thought was to get people at a point where, hey, Game Pass on Sony products. I'm waiting for that. So they're probably buying up these IPs so that they can get the exclusivity, but after they get, and which is probably why Sony's been pretty hesitant about cross-platform, because they know that's an eventuality. The eventuality isn't consoles. I think it's actually going to be PCs. And it hurts for me to say that because I've always loved Xbox as a console. I've always loved consoles, but I feel like everybody's going PC.
I mean,
it's going to reach that point.
I just bought the new Xbox.
When will an Xbox be just as expensive as a PC? That's what
never, because currently the Xbox was only $800 if you bought it from a scalper, which was already $300 more than its retail price. And a 3090 was $4,000 if you bought it from a scalper, and that's one part to a PC. So that's the difference in price. Now, the amount of enjoyment you can get from a PC versus an Xbox is obviously limited. I can't look up porn on my Xbox.
Which, I mean,
do you have a VPN? Because I feel like that. I know that sounds like you did.
You can access the internet, I guess, and then pull up your web browser.
I think the reason you have it is because you had a PC.
Well, and there's
the pics don't buffer. I get full downloaded instant picture.
I think it's one of those things where it is eventually going to get there where it's not going to be, are you an Xbox or are you a PlayStation person? Are you a Microsoft person or are you a Sony person? It's gonna stray. Are you exactly? And honestly, I don't love the idea. I'm a dabbler. I love to dabble in all things. I'm not one way or the other. I'm very Switzerland. I love being like, yeah, let's play, Destiny, and let's play.
You had the smuggest face when you said that.
That's why we should be filming.
You had the smuggest face. And that is a good point. We are not filming this with any sort of live video because we're currently all not in the same place. Right. It'll hardly ever be a time that any of the content creators will ever be on the same place. The podcast will probably always include me and my wife, Victoria, and then we'll have other guests, other content creators, and other members of the community in the podcast.
Right. Wherever it develops too. But yeah, we're right now just all... just voice, but we'll work on it. We'll figure it out.
So continuing, you're a dabbler. You like to touch multiple things with your hands.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's a necessity to be exclusively one or the other. I have a Netflix account. I have an HBO Now account. I have
blasphemous.
I have a Disney Plus account.
The problem is there's so many good shows on all of those, though.
Exactly, and just some people are going to be like, there's really good games on all of those
because of the competitive market. The more that these platforms start buying more and more IPs and competing with each other means the better the things are going to get for the competition.
Well, that's why we live in a world that has monopolies are quote unquote not allowed, because if we just let Disney buy everything, it wouldn't work out because Amazon exists and Amazon just starts buying things,
I like to think of it like this. If you're playing a war game, it is a lot easier to build the strongest army with the best defense if you're fighting one enemy than if you're fighting three. So the more enemies you can bring into your fold, the more allies you can generate for your own army, the better off you are to be able to fight the other leading army. But that goes the same both way. Right. The higher the competition, the better the quality is going to continue to rise. The community should thrive for these companies to keep purchasing. Right. Keep buying things. I hope Microsoft just buys a new company every day. Every day, just buy something new.
LucasArts.
Yeah, please.
God, I wish Microsoft bought LucasArts. It's such a tragedy that now that I knew that this was even a thing, right? I thought Microsoft was just developing their own first parties or just buying the small people at the time. Like Bungie was not really big, only had like 8 people or something like that whenever they got bought by Microsoft.
Right.
And then LucasArts.
Yeah. The sad thing with competition is if you don't dabble, to Vicky's point, it is very easy to dabble with at least the consoles currently. You just buy 2 and then you play both. However, if you don't dabble and you're loyal to one like I am, I primarily only play Microsoft or PC games.
I don't see why you wouldn't. Where if you have a PC, you can play any game.
It is very easy to dabble.
Yeah.
I don't. So if Microsoft didn't purchase a game I love, like for example, Activision was purchased by Sony. We'll flip the script here. Right. I don't own a PlayStation.
Right.
It wouldn't really affect anything I do on PC. I highly doubt Microsoft's going to do anything with any of their IPs on PC. Like World of Warcraft will still be WoW on PC. That's all going to stay the same.
Is it?
But the stuff that's going to be on Xbox, like Diablo and Overwatch 2, are probably going to be on Xbox, or at least were before the deal. Now definitely are. If Sony made that deal, would they have made it their way to the Xbox? Would I have missed my opportunity to play those games? I think Coughlin was trying to touch
on this earlier, where Xbox will have to pay Sony to use their games on their consoles.
How much is Xbox going to pay to use Destiny?
Probably more than $6 million to own the entire franchise.
Mm-hmm. There is something that is worth talking about in that purchase that we didn't touch base on. And Sony is looking like the better guy, the angel of the purchasers versus the devil on the shoulder. Bungie was hesitant about the deal, and an incentive to all of their employees did another $1.6 billion incentive payment to all of the employees, which equaled out to be something like almost $1 million per an employee at Bungie. Just a bonus for, hey, thanks for sticking around while we go through this transition. They didn't give that to them in a lump sum. They
said, stick with the company for the next X amount of years, and you'll be guaranteed raises, and that's how they... it sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes down to like paying everybody out for... their quote-unquote careers.
It might not even get divided up evenly. Like, maybe some of the bigwigs will keep more than they share out. But it is still more than what we've heard that Blizzard or Activision have heard. Now, obviously, those companies have probably 50 times the amount of employees that Bungie has. Bungie's relatively a smaller studio compared to the entirety of just the World of Warcraft team.
You have to also look at it as a sense of, like, was Bungie even using their own servers? Because they obviously weren't. They were paying Activision for theirs.
Yeah, that was the deal that they had. That's good memory on that.
So Microsoft bought Activision's WoW servers, all of the Call of Duty servers. I mean, all of the things that Activision owned, which I would say was a small conglomerate of multiple other games.
Yeah.
Bungie was definitely, quote-unquote, a smaller indie-style small business.
There was probably a time that Bungie was one of the titans, or not Bungie, sorry, that Activision, Blizzard, even Blizzard by itself, was one of the titans on the level with Microsoft and Sony.
Right, but that's a sub... I would also say that Blizzard is the same category as Bungie.
I wonder how long Microsoft has wanted to buy Blizzard. Because like I said, Activision was such a big company. One of the biggest game companies in the world.
I thought
Were they out of reach for Microsoft?
Blizzard was like prided on being an individual owned. I was shocked when Activision, quote unquote, bought out Blizzard.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I was like, whoa, why would Blizzard do that? I thought they were so adamant about being like, they're Blizzard, they don't make Blizzard games. It was the server issue. I know.
It was the same thing with the server issue. Blizzard needed more servers. They were tired of loaning out servers from Google and spending that amount of money on it. They felt like they were getting robbed. I mean, it was only like 50 dudes in a basement at some point when they were making World of Warcraft 2 Burning Crusade.
Absolutely.
So they merged with Activision just so they could purchase their own servers. So yeah, you're right. Maybe the servers is a lot bigger of a deal, but let's go back to the Microsoft. How long has Microsoft wanted to buy Activision? And is it only because a couple men have gone out of line and been inappropriately touching their co-stars? Was it readily available for them to purchase?
Co-stars? You mean they've been canceled? It was good timing. Well,
did they buy the dip?
So
did they buy the dip?
Know how far these guys are.
Did they buy the dip?
Case scenario.
We don't.
Because all right, so
I think they bought the dip.
Microsoft's been wanting to buy Blizzard probably for a while because of from what I could tell, Microsoft's maybe rivalry with Apple. Blizzard was one of the bigger game companies that made also their games playable on Macintosh. So I always thought there was a little bit of animosity there where they want Blizzard just to stop that from their bigger competition with Apple.
Yeah, that's a completely different conversation. Is King, right? Is all of the amount of money that King makes is the largest money producer of Activision Blizzard. King is King. If you guys don't know what King is, for the audience.
Like Candy Crush and shit.
That they own Candy Crush and all those other mobile games that make billions and trillions of dollars across the market on everyone who's playing phones.
You have no idea how much money those things.
They just released their reports. We can literally look it up.
Oh, okay.
But
It's probably a lot of money.
King is their highest grossed aspect of that company. All of those games are on Apple.
Oh.
Will those continue to be on Apple?
I don't know.
Is Apple gonna have to pay to
I
let
don't
those
know.
continue to be on Apple?
I don't know how any of those things work. Cause
Did
for a
they
long
not
time,
want? Did they not even want Activision? They just wanted King. Was that it?
Who knows?
Okay, so
They
here's
bought
another
they
thing.
bought
Who
Candy
knows?
Crush, and the cherry on top was WoW. Was that the deal?
So love and hate are two sides of the same coin. I'm sure you've heard
true.
this.
Yeah.
True.
But the thing is that whenever you hate someone, you reach that point where a company's hated so much, that all of a sudden somebody comes in and buys it. All of a sudden, that coin flips,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, as much as you hated it, is now as much as you love it. So now everybody's like on board. Everyone's coming back to World of Warcraft now. But like Activision's probably seen a
70
surge
billion,
of monthly active
Right.
users.
Right.
I guarantee it.
I have yet to see any
Surges
negative news
about-
about Activision or Bobby Kotick
Since then.
in weeks.
Right.
I got every single day
But
was
that's a
new news reports, and I've not had one since the
$70
purchase.
to make a quote unquote canceling go away.
I just love that when they first purchased it, their press conference was for that reason. They're all like, "We're tired of Activision." They literally said, Spencer came out in a press conference and quoting to my best ability, paraphrasing, I guess, said something along the lines of, "We are tired of Activision Blizzard King making the game industry look filthy. We are here to clean up the streets and bring a brighter image to the game industry across the board." So they were one of the reasons why that they released to the public that they purchased it was because they wanted it to no longer be a cesspool of inappropriate touching, of no zone blockage. They wanted to clean that shit up.
They were ruining
The image of games.
Image of gaming companies.
So they're all like,
Yeah.
"We're fixing this."
Flip, man.
And they're doing that, and they're doing great. So everyone's going back to it. No more boycotting.
So tell me, Coughlin, is there a game that would make you buy a PS4 or a
Is there a game
PS5?
that made me buy a PS4?
Right.
Gosh, I mean, what would it be?
You know
Are
what I
we
mean?
describing the perfect game, or are you just asking if a game was
No,
only
I think
console
Yeah,
specific?
if it's
There's an
PlayStation,
intellectual property
if
exclusive to
Right.
PS4.
right, is there something that would make if they bought something that you play religiously, would you go, well, I guess I have to buy a PS5 now. I guess I'll pay that $1,000 because of
I guess I don't fall into that. There's wait, I was thinking to myself, if Halo went to Sony, would I play a Halo game ever again? It's like, no, I had a lot of fun. I still have my old Xbox 360. I can play like Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2 on. Like, I don't really need it.
You would
And then all of a
abandon
sudden, I
Halo?
thought about Pokemon.
You're a
I thought
traitor.
Pokemon.
You're a traitor.
No.
You would
No,
abandon
I still
Master
have the old
Chief.
games. I
right.
still
So
have
those
the old
servers.
games.
Okay.
That's something
I
that's
still-
also interesting.
Yeah.
That's a game that doesn't need servers, that doesn't have active. It's a disc.
The
Games
campaign?
aren't that way anymore.
Yeah, campaign.
You can't just buy. Well, some games.
I mean,
you
how many
can.
games even have campaigns now? The last 3 Call of Duties didn't have one.
Listen. I bought a Switch
God,
to
are you
play
serious?
3 games.
Yeah. Warzone was technically a completed
But that
game.
was what made like Modern Warfare 2 and 3, like that's what made them legendary. Sure,
Yep.
their multiplayer
Yeah.
was great, but everybody
No.
loved the story.
I think Vanguard had a campaign, but it didn't do well. And the games prior to that, the one that was about the World War and then other ones, those were just straight multiplayers.
Right.
I stopped playing after Modern Warfare 3, so I'm totally out of my element even going into topic about Call of Duty, but I know for sure that a couple of their games didn't have campaigns.
See, I think that has a huge part to, we've talked a lot about, some of these games and some of these, like some of the things that are going to be quote unquote maybe exclusive to the console, but I think there's other things that I'm nervous about.
The exclusivity is a bit scary. I hope exclusivity goes out the window, but to
Yeah,
answer
but
the question
what
prior,
what does this mean for WoW? Is Microsoft going to be this unseen money peddler,
I
or is
do-
it going to be this
company that
Gonna
goes.
see those 6-month mounts turn into
I do want to hold on.
I'm just
I
saying.
do want to answer that. But I want to clarify what Coughlin was answering. You said you would switch for Pikachu. Like if Pokemon went to PlayStation, if the next actual game title name for Pokemon where you go to a new land and you've got a new Pokedex came out, like Sun and Moon equivalent.
I know that's really odd.
You would do it?
But maybe it's because of how unsatisfied I am with the story direction for Halo that made me say, I can take it or leave it at this point. That's so...
No, I agree with you.
That's sad.
I wouldn't
bad.
switch for Halo. But
I don't think Coughlin, 6 years ago would be like, you're stupid. What's wrong with you?
right.
You read all the novels. You've been following this story for so long. Why would you abandon it?
No.
I was like, it's just not that for me anymore.
I totally agree. I am absolutely not a Halo Infinite stan. I am off. I'm with the 56% that have stopped playing. I agree with you. But there is one game on Xbox that I would switch for. I would buy a PlayStation only for. Gears of War. Without a heart. Without a single thought. If Gears of War was purchased, if Epic was purchased by Sony, which they're not, they're already owned by Microsoft. But if they were to switch and Gears of War was only coming out on PlayStation, I would buy a PlayStation. I love the Gears franchise. I've never missed a game. I always play it for months, endlessly, once the games get released.
He's really into it.
Gears of War is probably my
He's
secret
really
love
into
child.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
he's
that's
really into it.
great. Well, I just never I fell off because I really loved Gears of War, the first one, right? But I never got Gears of War 2 because I was a kid and didn't have money.
Right.
So I never got it.
Yeah.
Red was a rich kid that got whatever he wanted.
What are you talking about? No, I'm not.
I'm saying you're a rich kid. You got whatever you wanted.
My dad was rich. I would mean you're a rich kid. I had no money. I couldn't buy a fucking popsicle if I wanted to. I had to praise my father's wiener to be able to go buy a popsicle at the store. My dad was rich.
A lot of popsicles.
My dad was rich, but he always used coupons. So by no means was I a rich kid. I bought my own car. Like I wasn't given things. Now if I said, "Hey dad, can I get the next Xbox with the Halo game?" He'd be all like, "Are you going to bug me about it for the next month?" I was like, "Not if you buy it right now." And then he would do it cuz I didn't have to bug him about it. But shit, when it came to things I wanted but didn't need, or things that were very momentarily, if I wanted to order a steak at a restaurant, you best hope my dad had a coupon for it. That steak better come buy one get one free, or I wasn't getting that steak. So I was very seldomly few considered a rich kid, but
I do think you should get into it, Coughlin. I think you would like Gears of War a lot.
Oh, it's a roller coaster. Trust me, his family's a roller coaster, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah, I think you would really like Gears. I think you would like Gears. I think you would like the new one, which is kind of more open worldy. Absolutely, but I
it's the couch co-op.
It's the couch co-op that's really sells it for us.
Everyone wanting to go open world?
I don't know.
It's just a phase. It'll go back to closed levels later.
Yeah, it's exactly just like the battle royale phase. It's just
we are at the level where it's very easy to make it open world. So why not go with the technical feat of this game's open world?
Right.
Why would you not use the technologies available to you?
I will say there are games that I wish were more open world, and there are games that I wish weren't. So it's weird. I think the Lara Croft games the new ones are fucking garbage because the exploratoriness of it's so linear. There's not even, they even tell you what button to press at the right time. That pisses me off. I'm I'm the explorer. I'm the one trying to find the lost stuff.
But
is this a telltale?
When I push the wrong button on accident in Assassin's Creed and I ninja leap 9 stories off of a building when I wanted to press B and I pressed A, you can bet your ass I'm hitting the pause button and walking outside for a second because that is it takes 10 years to climb up that building and I hit A, which makes the character jump instead of B, which makes them just go down a little. Oh my god, infuriating. I would appreciate a little bit more constructive feedback sometimes.
So Pokemon for Coughlin,
Gears for me,
Gears for you, and Animal Crossing.
If Animal Crossing went on PS4, you'd buy it.
I'd have to.
Yeah, because I still.
I would too.
Nintendo.
I would too, though. Animal Crossing's a game. I think any Nintendo
Xbox
game.
And a Nintendo.
Nintendo owns the market, in my opinion.
Nintendo is the best exclusive. If Nintendo were to release their games on PlayStation, I'd buy a PlayStation.
Right.
100%. Nintendo has the best exclusives.
Well,
that's without a
so
doubt.
that's something I was gonna bring up because it really doesn't make this isn't really a duopoly because Nintendo is another big contender.
And they're really the ones that own the market in the East.
Right. And they have just as many or even more because they're so exclusive that they only sell their games.
It's
and
even
the games that pay them to be on their console.
100%. That's absolutely what it is.
It's
They have
paying them
protected their IPs.
Yes, they protected their IPs of being and I mean it's for where it's developed. Let's be honest, but that's part of it is that ownership in that exclusivity that people like. I think.
Yeah, and like from the business aspect of what Coughlin was even saying earlier about Xbox isn't big in the East. Well, I think it's just Microsoft doesn't care to touch that market. Like, why would Microsoft even advertise over there when they know that they're not going to be able to even compete with Nintendo or PlayStation?
They've always been trying. They're really pushing in India right now, from the sounds of it. Like they're really trying to get their foot in the door in the East.
Yeah,
They're not buying the right IPs for me to make that seem like there's an interest. They would have bought Square Enix if they cared about marketing to the East. They would have bought it 10 years ago.
Square Enix is owned by Sony, if I recall.
Not technically. I don't think that's a full-on 100% they're
maybe.
owned. I think that's just a company that makes it's the thing that you said earlier where Square Enix just makes games for Sony.
And that to me that's more where the market should go.
I know for sure it's not.
Sony owning this small company
Correct.
who makes games for them. It's Sony pays that small company to
Square-
make them games.
Square Enix makes a countless amount of games for Nintendo.
Like produced by Sony and created by XYZ.
Yeah.
To me it would be better than
the culture of the different business practices as well.
right.
I think that a lot of the companies in the Eastern market are very possessive of their IPs.
100%. It's
Agreed.
totally different than here.
Very proud of their IPs, and the idea of merging companies is such a big deal
Yeah, blasphemy.
that that this kind of merger just wouldn't happen. Probably too much of these. That's probably why they didn't buy Square Enix, not because they didn't ask, but because Square Enix probably wouldn't want to. Plus,
I think Square Enix would rather go with Nintendo if they were to get purchased by one of the conglomerates. They would be all like,
I think there is.
Who knows? No.
they just make more games for Nintendo. I think they're like they do let their games go on PlayStation, but they 100% make all of their money on the Switch right now.
Skyrim on Switch, so
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, but that means they pay.
Yeah, Nintendo is paying Microsoft for that ability to do so.
Right. Or I think it might be the other way around, where they're like, let us give you money so people can play our game on your console.
Yeah, how do those deals go?
Pay you money to put a lesser version on your.
Oh my game! Oh yeah, I know.
it's the whole theory of the insurance company, right? Like it's like the best salesperson in the world is the person who invented insurance because they sold you the idea of comfort, where it's like, hey, pay me to provide you this versus I'm paying you as a customer to choose to be with me.
Sure.
Right? It should totally be the other way around.
It's true. So, do you think that this, I want to call it buy-off, because we just said we don't think it's a buy-off, but I think it's a buy-off, is going to delay things that have already inevitably been delayed for the last 2 years? Do you think that Diablo's going to be pushed back again? Do you think...
Oh my goodness. That is such a great question, and the answer is it'll probably expedite things and where they're normally going. Because I guarantee you, they just got a blank check from Microsoft.
I totally disagree. I totally disagree. So this is my standpoint on it. Originally, even what I said earlier, it's totally in connection, in tandem to that thought process we talked about earlier. And we gotta start wrapping things up here in a little bit. But
this is just a pivoting point.
it's a great pivot point. This isn't gonna like carry on for another 10 years. We gotta start wrapping stuff up. But I do want to continue with this. So, in tandem, what I said earlier, Microsoft knows how and what games Activision is making.
You said that already.
100%. This is in tandem to that. With that said, they also know that there is zero chance that Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 will not be Game of the Year.
This year.
Both of those games, if they were released in separate years, are going to be game of the year for their individual year with their own rights.
So you think they're going to push it back?
They are going to release Overwatch 2 in July. I'm going to give you a day. I'm going to say July 5th, 2022. Overwatch 2 gets announced in the next 2 months with a release date, July 5th, 2022.
Okay.
Diablo 4 gets released January 15th, 2023. Both games being released exactly as far as they could. They're both almost ready to be released, but they want to do it in a way that both games get Game of the Year. Both games are Xbox PC exclusive. Microsoft gets 2 games of the year for the next 2 games for the next 2 years
Yeah, but
to be able to
God of War
boost.
Ragnarok's going to come out this year. There are other games on the chopping block, babe.
God of War is the new God of War has also been delayed.
Yeah.
But it's not going to, it will not compete with the 2 best franchises in their own right. Overwatch blew the other competitors out of the water when it was released for Game of the Year that year. Diablo 3 didn't even stand a chance. No competitor stood a chance to try to compete with Diablo 3 when it was released. Diablo 3 literally beat the World of Warcraft expansion that came out that year for Game of the Year.
Do you think that's going to push back the World of Warcraft?
No.
Or do you think they're just not caring if
WoW,
World of Warcraft's not going to get Game
WoW's
of the Year?
timeline is always going to be WoW's timeline. That is no longer
What did
there.
you think I said? What did you think I say?
You said that
So
they
what I
are
said.
they're going to rush them. You said that they're going to try to push them forward. I think they're going to inevitably delay Diablo 4. Both games are ready to be released right now. That is without a question of doubt. Overwatch 2 has had literal competitions that have been live streamed on Twitch. That game could come out tomorrow, ready, polished, clean, and good to go. They are going to keep pushing these games back to fill the agenda of their timeline and their marketing. Overwatch 2 comes out in summer.
So my idea of delays were like 2 years from now.
Oh, no, God. There's
So my expediting of those 2 years. That's
No.
what I was thinking.
there's no delay. Like,
So you're like giving the dates that were already in my mind.
Right. As
So I'm
those
like,
are those
Yeah.
are yeah. So
that is considered a delay because
But see,
if the
no,
game is
I
ready to be
was-
released, it should be released.
But I was saying you don't think that they're gonna. You think they're gonna throw more? I think so. They're gonna throw more money at the games so that they take more time working on them.
No, those games don't need any more money at all.
Do you think it's just a strategic release date?
Yeah, those games are completed. They just put them in a little box and
I
they've
don't know
locked
about
the
that.
chest,
I
and
don't
that
think
chest has a
I don't
timer
believe
on
in
it.
that. I don't think Microsoft's gonna do that.
I think there's
Everything is release day now. Every single thing in this world
But you
is
don't think
release
anything's.
day.
But you don't think it's gonna be reworked. You don't think any game
No, God,
that's
no.
been
Those
pushed
games are
back-
done, 100%.
Okay.
Diablo 4 has had so much, Diablo 4 is still in production. That's why I think it'll be the later of the two.
Okay.
But Overwatch 2 is going to get pushed back because the World of Warcraft expansion is going to drop in 3 months. Overwatch 2 is going to come out right when the raid has been completed and everyone's kind of fallen out on that lull. They're going to play Overwatch 2 for 6 months. They can ride the hype for 6 months. 6 months is December. November, we're going to get BlizzCon again. I guarantee that's going to happen. I really hope it does. That's more of a dream, but we'll see. BlizzCon happens. Then they're going to say, hey, everyone, here's all of the early access codes if you play on Xbox. Early access Game Pass for Diablo 4. Go play on Xbox in 2 weeks in December, right before Christmas.
You probably nailed it for that one.
And then January 5th or 15th, release it for PC. 100% that is Microsoft's purchase plan for why they bought Activision, because 2 games going to be Game of the Year in their both respective years is
What do you
way
get-
too much free marketing.
What-
They'll make their money back
What do they get for
on those
being
games
Game of the
alone.
Year? Do you get anything?
You get the advertisement of Microsoft made the best game that year.
But Microsoft is already known for making some
That's
of the
not true.
best games.
Horizon Frozen Dawn won Game of the Year 2 years ago, and the Game of the Year last year was the Hades game.
Yeah,
I don't
but
think
they're-
either
but
company
they're-
owns
but
that.
Then, but then you're also saying Microsoft isn't making those games.
Yeah, they're not.
Blizzard's making those games.
But Microsoft owns those games now, and that game's gonna get early access on the Xbox.
But what is to me from like a business standpoint, not from a consumer, but from a business, I'm like, owning a game, you're owning that game for the profits, not for the look what we created.
So let me put it this way. Everyone knew Hades, which was an underdeveloped, or was an extremely well-developed, low IP game. Like, there was very little
right,
advertisement
right,
for that game.
right.
But
Still won.
the only advertisement was on Twitch,
Right.
right? Twitch then said, this game's fucking good. Everyone go
This is
play
my
it.
First time hearing about it.
Yeah,
honestly.
there you go. Hades won Game of the Year last year.
Yeah.
And now it gets a re-release with the year after it wins the award. So in 2023, Overwatch 2 will be re-released with the Game of the Year tag as a purchasable. This comes with all the DLC, Game of the Year. Buy it here. They get to sell the game twice.
Right.
2 separate years back to back. Doubling their profits on both of those
Right.
games.
I mean, well,
because the people that don't play it the first time
true.
will definitely play it for the
mean,
next time because it's now Game of the Year.
Right, but I mean, they own a company that sells you a game every 2 years, Red. You buy WoW for the last 10 years of your life. You've bought that game.
But people
over
who
and
play
over and over again.
Overwatch do not play WoW. People who
That
play
is-
Diablo
okay,
do not play
You're right.
WoW.
They're trying to manipulate all of the markets.
And both of those games will be Game of the Year in their own right.
But do you think that Halo is a Microsoft game?
Yeah, but it's not Game of the Year.
Or is it a 3-for-3 game?
It's definitely not 3 for 3.
It hurts my feelings that whenever he says that. But yeah, it hasn't been Game of the Year for. Was Halo 4 Game of the Year?
No, God, no. I don't
only
even think
when
Halo
Bungie
3
owned-
was.
I think it was only when Bungie owned the
I
game.
think Halo 3 was.
You got to think of every World of Warcraft expansion that has ever been released besides Warlords of Draenor has been Game of the Year. Except for Shadowlands and Warlords now. So all of those Halos and stuff, it was so hard for them to compete with. Right? Diablo 3 won, World of Warcraft expansions have won. Very little Microsoft IPs. Borderlands won, Borderlands 2 won. I know both of those. So it's hard. We'd have to look that up, but Vicky's looking it up right now. So let's see how many under Microsoft.
There's only been Game of the Year since 1998.
Yeah, I'm going to count them. I'm going to count all the Microsoft games here. So talk to him about something. I'm going to count them.
So actually, it's weird because back in the
early
Halo Game of the Year. Oh, what was
Right.
that? I'm having trouble hearing you a little bit, Vic. Sorry.
Oh, I'm over here. Sorry. So it looks like that, truthfully, depending if you're looking at console PC, some years they gave out multiple awards, but I don't see any.
Fallout 4 was not Nintendo owned at the time, but that was Bethesda. Microsoft has never had a game
of the year.
of the year.
They've never had a game of the year.
Halo Combat Evolved.
They have a rare
Combat Evolved, yeah, in 2002.
But did they own? It then?
Yeah, they did.
They did own it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
They did, yeah.
Well, 2002. Well, and you know what? Look at these other IPs that are on there. Bungie's been on there twice because Destiny's been on there twice.
No, Destiny, and then they made.
Oh, and then they technically
Halo.
made original Halo. So honestly, Bungie was the quote unquote better buy.
Yeah, the last 3 was Hades,
'cause
Outer Wilds, and God of War. Outer Wilds was actually a Microsoft release exclusive only on Game Pass. So that was their first probably Game of the Year big game. That's crazy.
I just find it very, very interesting that it's weird because God of War has gotten it. Last of Us has gotten it. I mean, Overwatch did get it.
It Takes Two was also a Game Pass exclusive. I think that was on PlayStation as well, but it was on Game Pass. That was a game that was also on Game Pass.
To me, I'm seeing a lot more
Overwatch?
PlayStation exclusive
Overwatch?
games being Game of the Year.
Yeah, a lot of PlayStation games get Game of the Year.
I'm actually pretty surprised that the
Overwatch
Spider-Man
1,
game
which was good.
didn't get Game of the Year.
A lot of people were. When Hades
When
Hades was announced.
You know?
I don't know.
Academy
I
Awards.
don't. I mean,
Yeah,
we have to
Where
look
there's
that
a
up.
lot of money that goes into whether or not you
Right.
get Game of the Year, like
Mhm.
under the table
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, because to me, Last of Us, that's a specific PlayStation exclusive game.
Yeah.
To God of War, PlayStation exclusive game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I just to me, and then to have Blizzard only get Overwatch, I do understand being like, we need to have a Game of the Year.
There's
I
a lot
do
of different
understand
Game of the Year
Microsoft's-
awards too for anyone that's looking stuff up. Like there's the Game Awards is different than the Game Developers Choice Awards, and
Yes,
there's obviously
yes.
different award ceremonies that happen throughout the big year. The ones that we're primarily looking at are the British Game of the Year awards, because that's
Right.
the one that's been going on the longest. It's one that everyone watches, and the official Game of the Year awards, which is actually hosted by Spike, and that one's the one that's on television every single year in the United States.
Right.
That's only been going on since 2014.
And that's not even the Eastern market. I mean,
No.
that's not even, we're not even talking about, we're talking about here and now and what these companies that primarily, are running in America right now are caring about. But I just don't I mean, I'm seeing more of this idea of Microsoft being like, we need to not only just release games, we need to release good games.
Yeah, and that's why they're buying these things, because they know that these developers are going to be making good games.
So you don't think that, I mean, don't get me wrong, everything's about money, right? Everything's about money. And this just comes with money.
At the end of the day.
Right, but you don't think that, because PlayStation does have its PlayStation Live, and Xbox used to have Xbox Live, right? Mm-hmm. But now there's Game Pass that allows you to play PC games.
I think Xbox Live still exists, but Game Pass is completely different. Like, you can just have Xbox Live as a purchasable subscription.
Xbox Live. That's what they're
right. That's kind of where not only do you have to buy this item, right? This console, this physical piece of property that you own. Now you have to pay for not only like either a physical disc or a digital copy of a game that costs you a certain amount of money, or you pay a monthly subscription for unlimited quote unquote games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really an endless amount of games because it continues to keep adding new ones and
but
taking out old
it's the same
ones.
thing that comes back to what Coughlin said. You don't own those games.
You don't need to. You get your enjoyment out of them and you're done.
But Coughlin said he could go back and play Halo 2 if he wanted to.
Correct? If he wanted to.
In the future, you're not going to be able to do stuff like that.
I have
doesn't
not
scare
bought
you?
a physical form of a game since Halo Wars 2. That was the last physical disc I bought.
And that was the collector's edition.
Every game that has have come out since then.
Are you going to get the WoW one? You're going to get the new
I always
one?
buy those, but
Well,
those don't even come with discs. That comes with the digital download code.
Right. They don't come with discs anymore.
So crazy, right?
It is just a...
I still own all of the World of Warcraft discs, but like the original ones, but the collector's editions don't come with that anymore. It is absolutely crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whenever I got the BFA collector's edition, like for the album, like unfortunately, I'm really upset that I missed the Shadowlands one because they actually had the physical disc in that one, I think.
I have the Shadowlands
one. But the BFA one,
they're in here.
Yeah, but the BFA one, they just had the download code for the album.
It's so funny.
And it just really messed up my iTunes.
Yeah.
Like I had to like look all over the place to try and like rename it because it had it in like 15 different categories. Like Jesus Christ, like why is this a thing?
The age of digital is around the corner. We're moving into that for sure. I mean, we can definitely end with this, but World of Warcraft and Blizzard paved the way for the digital influx. Think about how many people are like, oh, it's so much better just to buy a big old purchase of a game and then a monthly sub. We're okay with doing that. Microsoft then goes, if they're okay with doing it for WoW, they'll do it for 90 other game titles for the same price.
Well, I wanna make a point. Did you ever get GameFly?
Yeah, I had GameFly.
To me, Microsoft just bought GameFly.
Yeah.
You know, they just bought the idea of like Netflix for games.
Sure. I mean, Netflix definitely started the streaming world, and that was where we all wanted to go with Stadia, and that's where Game Pass became. Microsoft's on that path.
If you're a World of Warcraft player, you're definitely a Netflix player. I mean, a Netflix guy.
Yeah.
Because you have to do something while you're doing all those damn world quests.
For real.
So true.
All right.
We could talk about that next week.
Yeah,
we could talk about more World of Warcraft stuff when we have... Yeah. I have a whole list of shit we could talk about for that.
We will continue to discuss all of these new and current events in the opinion of the Sleighing.Online community. Thank you guys so much for joining us this day on this podcast. If you want to get the podcast a day early, all you have to do is subscribe to any one of our Twitches and join the Gilded Discord, or not the Discord server, the Gilded server. It is like Discord, but it is its own entity. Again, a duopoly. We are using Gilded, not Discord. So like I said, you subscribe to any of our Twitches. Mine's Red the Deer.
Mine's Victoria Aurora.
And I'm Panda Call.
And those links will be in the description below. We will be posting the podcast one day early on Mondays. Or actually 2 days early on Monday on the Gilded server. So you can get it 2 days early. And if you don't want to get it 2 days early, you will have to wait. These will be released on the YouTube channel or where you get your podcasts on Wednesdays. Thank you so much for joining us. Follow our socials to keep in touch with us outside of the podcast and outside of stream. Thank you guys so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.